Age Discrimination in Employment Act. We're going to talk about the basics of this critical act. It affects people in the workplace and also even applicants. So we'll look at that. We also have different thresholds you'll have because of the fact we have some odd things as to how this is enforced. You have different circuits of the United States looking as to whether or not an employee is covered as well as an applicant is covered. We have not had a Supreme Court decision that would actually determine exactly which part of it really is. Here's the actual act over here. To fail or refuse to hire or to discharge any individual or otherwise discriminate against any individual with respect to compensation, terms, conditions, privilege of employment because of such individual's age. This law covers people of the age of 40 and above. So you can feel free to discriminate against people on age based upon their youth, but you can't feel free to discriminate based upon their older age. It really is distinct, though, from a really critical part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Because of the fact that it is not a protected class there's interpretations, they're not identical, and they're generally less favorable to the claimant. So you have two different enforcement standards between them. You have Title VII, you have gender, sex, you have race, you have religion, but you don't have age actually enforced with the same type of rules that you have out there. And let's face it, the United States, like a lot of cultures, we value youth. If you look on the commercials that you have, whether it be social media, any type of television or anything out there that is spread across the United States, you'll see we value youth to the point that almost all advertising is for young people. And a lot of sometimes for the older people, it's a matter, you too can look younger, 15 years younger if you do this special. We love youth. So the age of stereotypes is somebody is really old and they have a really hard time because they're low on energy and interest and productivity. Oh, really? The reality of that really is that we've had a big change into how we treat people, and the 50 is the new 40. Or wait a minute, the 60 is the new 40. The 70 is the new 45. Okay, so you have different examples. There's an awful lot of people that are out there. I would turn your attention to Warren Buffett, probably one of the most respected finance people on planet Earth. He's well over 90 now, and he's leading Berkshire Hathaway. And whenever he speaks, sneezes, or anything else, everybody pays attention. He is sharp, sharp, sharp. And even though he's over in his 90s, he certainly knows what he's doing, and one of the most respected examples of it. Sometimes you have other people, though, that really are losing it from really a mental acuity aspect, and so they're different, but it's not necessarily based upon age. It's really based upon the aspect of perspective as to the things that are coming out of their thought process as to whether or not they're unified in it, and how sharp is your mental acuity. Google, they had a settlement to deal with Brian Reed. They removed Brian Reed, and he sued based upon age discrimination, and he won the case. Let me read part of the decision here. Despite decades of research finding that age does not predict ability or performance, employers often fall back on precisely the age of stereotypes that the ADA was enacted in the 60s to prohibit. We have a tendency to sit down and say, they're old and have to do that. And sometimes it is pertinent on the age aspect. We have a couple different things we'll talk about later as to there are certain occupations that we have restriction on regarding age. Older workers, they tend to stay in the job longer because now we have better health care. With that, you also have a lot of lingering effects of the Great Recession which took place during the Obama era. With that aspect of it, a lot of people lost big chunks of retirement. They had to sit down and work additional years. They found themselves in their golden years, and the golden years were a little bit dirty brass rather than solid gold. So it just depends where it comes out to. Older boys, a lot of times, they look like they're more expensive because they got more experience. You got 27 years in this? I can hire a college kid for a lot less than you can. I could hire two. Well, maybe you can, but maybe sometimes those older people can actually do a lot of work quicker because of the raw experience in it, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes that switching cost doesn't account for the productivity losses they're just not fully counted when you start getting involved with this generalization aspect of it. There's an awful lot to be said for experience when you bring somebody into the job and they're doing it for a long period of time because they know all the shortcuts. You'll find that out generally just for fun in the aspect of human resources. The school year, the actual work year is 2,080 hours what we count. That's 52 weeks times 40 hours. So think about that aspect of it. We have a tendency to consider people with 10,000 hours of experience true experts. Well, start figuring out 10,000 hours is just a little bit over 5 years of experience. That's when people really become experts into their field. Pay that attention is to when you start hiring people fresh out of whatever, that they need to be there for a little while. As soon as they have that magic number, at least a year before they really get the hang of the entire job. But if they stay a longer period of time instead of job hopping, they can be really consummate experts in a short period of time. But if you're in that same job for a long period of time, decades, finding all the different ways to do it quicker and more efficiently is handy. Now, sometimes you have the issue of technology can actually jump over different years of experience. But that said, keep this in mind. Anytime we generalize, whether it's age, whether it's race, whether it's gender, whether it's sexual orientation, if you say, I believe this is how they act all the time, and we have that automatic switch right here inside of our head, and we make a decision when they walk into the room in 2.5 seconds to 7 seconds is what the data says. We make a decision if we like them or not. Because we turn that switch on in their heads and don't turn it off and give that person, whoever walked in that door, a good chance, all of a sudden now we're generalizing based upon past experience or opinions that have been filtered onto us from maybe somebody else. Make your own judgments. Keep your mind open all the time. Always pay attention to who that person is. They are a unique individual and a character. And quite frankly, from my perspective, I view this whole aspect of them being that unique individual. I need to sit down and give that person a chance and find out who they really are before I make a judgment. Try to keep your mind open on age discrimination, all discrimination. It really has no basis. If you don't like somebody after half an hour, that's a different issue than you don't like somebody after knowing them for 3 seconds. So individualized consideration, make sure you're paying attention. This law, the ADEA, is focusing on age at least 40 years and older for businesses 20 plus full-time employees on all governments. Now, on the smaller groups that with less employees, you may have state laws kicking in that would cover them where the federal law doesn't. So people underneath the age of 40, they're not protected by this act. So if you want to go and discriminate against somebody based upon age, discriminate based upon their youth. Yes. Okay, there's no upper age limit for coverage. If you look over here, you'll see that you'll have a rock and roll time. To some extent, this chart is a little bit based upon the economy. You can actually see the Obama recession here as it goes, and everything spiked. And then you can see gradually sort of coming out of that. And recently, because of the fact, if you look on the year 19, 20, and 21, you'll see that it declines. What's not showing here, though, is also we had a large number of people leaving the workforce. One year we had 14.3 million, another year 13.3 million, and boom, 27 million people left the workforce, and all of a sudden a lot of jobs, there was a plethora of them that people could choose from. Now keep this in mind when you're looking on ADEA. It's more lenient than Title VII with a lot more latitude afforded on the employer side than the employee side. So with that, age discrimination, a lot of times you have this thing that I call a fog in place. In other words, there's a lot of different things why people can lay people off, and people can think it's age discrimination. And indeed, it might be age discrimination, but it also could be this, it could be this, it could be this. And you'll see that because of the fact that we are not covered in this area by Title VII, that also you'll have some different aspects of it. On record keeping, there are specific rules on record keeping. Make certain you're paying attention to them. Number one, this is not under rule, but keep your files. You have one personnel file in every organization. You can have administrative files in other parts of the organization, but you have one personnel file. That's it. Don't even think of having more than that. It becomes very cumbersome. You can have a supervisor may have an administrative file on his different employees, but the true place to keep all the records is one place, and that way you can access them right there in case you ever have a subpoena. On there, when it comes down to employers and applicants, keep all your past records on all employees at least 3 years. My personal recommendation is 7. And on all your applications, the rule is keep all applications for 1 year. Now, sometimes you want to keep them for 1 year and dispose of the old ones because of the fact that that reduces the amount of stuff in case somebody wants to file 2 or 3 years out. But with that being said, I've always kept them for 2 years just because making certain that I can sit down and refer back to records in case a claim ever came up. Now, on states still have laws. Here's North Dakota or South Dakota. They don't have any age discrimination law at all. So anybody with less than 22 employees, they can sit down and pick on it all they want to in South Dakota. But a lot of times you'll see that you'll have states kicking in on different applicable statutes for smaller employers. Sometimes they'll even include emotional distress, punitive damages, a longer time to file. You'll see all the differences. You also have some variation in federal courts. ADEA is a federal law, therefore it's covered by a federal court. Well, the federal appeals courts on the different circuits, we have a series of them across the entire country. They don't always agree. You see, that's not new, it's something old, but here's the reality of it. Until we get a Supreme Court decision saying that employees and applicants are all covered by this, that is not how they read right now. At this time, we know that all employees of the organization are covered by with 22 or more. Okay, we know that, but the aspect of the applicants that has not been defined by the Supreme Court, it may be one day. So it applies to people 40 plus. It's not part of Title VII. The threshold and enforcement are at lower levels for this act, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, than Title VII. And there's a legal fog. And we'll talk more about that fog, but keep in mind that a lot of different things could be involved with getting rid of older employees, and employers have a tendency to think about how you can cover that aspect as well. Employees are covered, the applicant covered. If somebody applies for a job, not necessarily are they covered. With that, age discrimination, it's real, it's happening, it happens all over in the United States, and we have data that shows it's declining, but other parts are a larger concern now than maybe ever before. Age discrimination in employment. Take care.